Hello and welcome to my Chromatic Nature YouTube channel. My name is Natalia, and on this channel I show you guys how I use natural dyes to dye clothing and fabrics. Today's video is about dyeing a batch of clothing with two natural dyes and creating a two-color tie-dye effect. In this video I also for the first time show you how I use logwood on actual garments. I've only used logwood on my mordanting tests in my videos so far, but I really love this dye and I love the color that it gives. So I'm excited to actually show you garments I dyed with logwood. So the batch I'm dyeing with Madder Root and Logwood is gonna be these 4 different styles of headbands, a t-shirt dress, for me, this boxy, I think it's a medium t-shirt that I'm gonna put in the store, a t-shirt for my mom, my dad, and my brother. So that's gonna be 5 garments and 4 headbands. And they're all already scoured prior to being cut and sewn, so they're not going to shrink anymore. They're gonna stay true to their size. And then these are the mordants and dyes that I'm going to use in this project. The first thing I'm going to use on the fabric is sumac gallnut extract. That is a tannin, so I'm going to treat the fabric with it first. Then I'm going to mordant it with aluminum acetate because aluminum acetate works well for both of the dyes that I'm going to use. And I'm gonna finish off the mordanting with a calcium carbonate or chalk afterbath. And the 2 dyes that I'm gonna use today are Madder Root and Logwood. So Madder Root is going to be my base color, and then I'm going to tie them up into tie-dye bundles, and then I'm gonna dye them with Logwood, so we get a 2-color tie-dye effect. So the first thing I'm gonna do is figure out how much all of the garments that I'm dyeing weigh. Headbands, t-shirt, 3 more t-shirts. Okay, whoop, 869 grams. So I am going to round that off to 870 grams, just to make it easier to calculate everything. I'm going to pre-wet the garments in this bucket in just plain water before I do the tannin mordanting. I filled the bucket with water, not all the way, but enough water to soak all these. I'm actually a little worried about my big pot not being big enough for this batch. So I'm actually going to use the pot in which the tannin mordanting will be done to measure out the tannin. Ooh, I might not be able to see the dial. Oh no, here we go, I can see it. Okay, let's hope it doesn't fall off. I have this pouch of 142 grams of the sumac gallnut extract, and I need 87 grams. Actually, let me stop right now and put gloves on. I'm trying to be more consistent about wearing gloves, and since putting gloves on, I'm gonna go ahead and put the rest of my safety equipment on, which is my goggles and a mask. You might be thinking to yourself, well, isn't this powder organic, therefore harmless? And the thing is, it doesn't matter how organic a powder is, your eyeballs and your lungs still don't want that powder in them. So here we go. Proof I'm actually wearing safety equipment. Oh my goodness, that worked so well. I didn't even have to get the scoop dirty. Okay, the water is at temp. It looks pretty dissolved. So now I'm gonna add more water to this. Okay, I don't wanna add too much water because the garments are already soaked in water. So let's see if they fit in here and if this is enough water, and if it's not, I'll add some more. I'm just squeezing them out of the bucket that they've been getting pre-wetted in, and I'm adding them to this box. I just realized I was gonna heat this up first and then add them. But you know what? I'd rather find out if they all fit in here. They're just gonna be in the pot as I bring it up to temperature. And honestly, I think that's fine. I don't think there's anything wrong with doing that. This is everything. Let's see. Could use a little more water. Yeah, I think I'm gonna add pretty much as much water as I can so that they flow more freely in there, because they are a little stuffed in there. Ugh, it's kind of heavy. Excuse me. Oh, I struggle with this pot. So this is my new kitchen setup. New stove. Well, not new, but new to me. New kitchen. Same owl. I have the pot on here and I'm going to heat it up to about 160. So we'll check back on it in a few minutes. Okay, it's been heating up for a while. Temperature has now reached 160. I'm going to turn the temperature down to just maintain it. We'll keep it here for an hour. It's been a temperature for an hour, so I'm gonna go ahead and take it off the heat. I'm gonna let it cool down, and I'm going to prepare the aluminum acetate solution to continue the mordanting. I'm going to need 87 grams of that also. I'm going to measure it in this, and I'm gonna dissolve it in this container with some hot water. No, that's too much. That's all of it. I don't want to use so much of it. Okay, 88 grams, good enough. I'm gonna pour some hot water that I heated up to about 160 in here. And we're gonna dissolve it here before adding it to the bucket of water that I'm going to use to mordant the garments. I'm gonna add the dissolved aluminum acetate into this bucket of water. Get all of it in. This water is just lukewarm, and that's fine for this type of mordanting. It doesn't need to be hot. Now that the tannin mordanting has kind of cooled down, I'm ready to transfer it to the aluminum acetate bucket. I'm gonna let those mordant in there for an hour. I'm actually gonna wash this pot and use it to cook the dye. I am going to cook the Madder Root dye. And I'm actually not gonna measure it out because I'm gonna use this entire 57 gram package of it. And I'm going to dump it straight into the pot. Some people recommend to soak it before you cook it, but I'm just going to mix it with water here and heat up this pot to about 170, between 170 and 180. I'm gonna keep it at that temperature for about an hour. And I decided that I'm actually going to do the dyeing in the plastic bucket because it's bigger and this batch is kind of big and this pot just doesn't really give it enough room to flow about. So I'm gonna dye in the bucket. Okay, and the Madder Root is cooking. The Madder Root is very frothy now. 181. I should actually turn down the heat right now because I don't really want it getting any hotter than that. While the Madder Root is cooking, I'm going to begin the last part of the mordanting, which is the calcium carbonate afterbath. I'm gonna measure out 43.5 grams. Oh, well, there we go. That's perfect. Calcium carbonate is mixed in with the water. I have a fresh bucket of water ready, and that's the bucket I'm gonna add the chalk to. So the aluminum acetate Mordanting solution. It turned kind of a murky purple. I don't know why it did that. The metal salts, they do react kind of interestingly with tannins, so I think it's because of that. The reason I'm bathing them in chalk is to neutralize the acidity of these garments, because aluminum acetate is pretty acidic. So I'm gonna bathe them in calcium carbonate for 15 to 30 minutes before I put them in the dye bath. Okay, these have been soaked in chalk for long enough. I'm just gonna quickly rinse them in another bucket of clean water. And from there, they're gonna go into the dye bath, which I'm going to make in this bucket after I rinsed it out from the chalk. I'm straining the dye through the world's tiniest strainer and the world's flimsiest strainer setup. It's seriously a miracle that I don't think I've ever dropped a strainer into dye. I don't know why it hasn't happened yet, but it hasn't. I strained the dye several times, partially because I keep missing the strainer as I pour it. So I go back and forth from the pot to the bucket a couple times before I'm done. Here we are. Here's our dye. It's pretty rich. I am gonna need to add more water to it because this isn't enough water for all of those clothes in there. All right, first one going in. So it might look like I'm pretty close to overflowing, but pretty close to overflowing isn't a bad thing. It's only if you're overflowing that it's a bad thing. This means that I'm giving these garments as much room as I can in this bucket. Okay. And I'm gonna leave it like that for overnight. It is the following morning, and let's look at our Madder Root. So the clothes have definitely taken on a lot of Madder Root color. It's not super intense because I didn't use a very high concentration of the Madder Root, only 6.5%. And they're probably not dyed very evenly. We'll see once we lay them out, because this is a pretty confined space. But it doesn't really matter if it's even or not, because I'm going to tie-dye these. I'm doing a different tie-dye pattern for each of the shirts that I'm making. On my brother's, I'm tying into this scrunchy stripe pattern. That feels like something a teenager might wear. And for my dad's shirt, I'm doing also kind of a stripe pattern, but I'm making it very like methodically folded and organized. And for my mom's shirt, I went with this scrunched all over pattern. I did a similar thing with the shirt that's going into the shop, and kind of a combination of a swirl and a scrunch on my t-shirt dress. For 3 of the headbands, I just kind of scrunched them or twisted them, but then for the shaped headband, I folded it into this kind of like an origami fold pattern, and we'll see how that turns out. I'm kind of excited to see what happens with it. Now it's time to prepare the logwood dye, and this dye I am going to pre-soak in water before heating. I'm going to use this entire package of 57 grams, so I'm not measuring it, I'm just dumping it all. Okay, I'm gonna start heating up this water for the logwood. The water temperature is now 170, and it's really the hottest that I even wanted to get, so I'm gonna go ahead and lower the heat to very low, and I'm going to add the logwood. And you can already see in the Tupperware how much color is already in this water. And now I'm gonna keep this at this temperature for about an hour and not let it get too high, not let it get past 190. The logwood has been cooking for about an hour, and it could definitely cook longer, but I'm kind of rushing through all this because my family is actually going to be here tonight, and I want the shirts to be curing already, so I'm not messing with them for a couple days that they're here. You can see the logwood dye is very rich. So I'm going to go ahead and take it off of the heat now and let it cool down. Time to strain the logwood dye. I'm using a little cheesecloth this time so that I don't have to strain it as much. But now I just gotta aim it right. Okay, I think that went pretty well, so I'm actually not going to restrain it. Let's see if this is enough to cover the garments. If it's not, I'll add more water. You know what? That's kind of enough liquid. When you're dyeing tied bundles, it's actually kind of easier to have enough liquid to cover them than when you're dyeing loose, open garments, because the loose, open garments need more room to, unravel. But with these, you don't really need as much room, so this is enough. And look, the garment's already taking the color on very well. And now I'm gonna let this sit for several hours, like 5 hours or something. So it's only been 3 hours, but my family's almost here. So we're going to go ahead and take these out. Normally I would give it more time, but desperate times call for desperate measures. And they do look pretty dark. Right now the fabric looks almost black. I'm not using gloves to unravel them because it's too hard to deal with the rubber bands with gloves on. I'm starting with my origami folded headband. Ooh! I actually really like how that turned out. I untied the rest of the headbands and all the shirts, and I'm really pleasantly surprised at how this logwood dye really took to the fabric so quickly. After I untied them all, I hung them up inside my garage and left them there for 2 days. After the 2 days, it was time to finish these garments. I hand washed them in some cool water with Synthrapol, a neutral detergent that's recommended for using on dyed garments. Then I dried them on a medium heat setting in my dryer. And finally, the last step is I ironed them on a medium-low setting. Here's the finished shirts that I made for my parents and my brother. I like that they're all in the same colors, but they each got a unique design of their own. I think logwood is the perfect natural dye to use for tie-dyes because it gives you such dimensional color with such different shades in it. And here's the other items from this batch. My t-shirt dress, the shirt that is going to be in my shop, and the headbands. I actually really like how all of these headbands turned out. I'm very happy with how these garments turned out. I was able to send my family back home with their presents all ready for them to wear. And I just started the project like the day before they arrived. So it was kind of a time crunch, but it worked out because logwood dye managed to get so dark and rich within just 3 hours, and that's pretty amazing for natural dyeing. That was another successful natural dyeing adventure. Thank you for joining me for it, and I hope you enjoyed it. And don't forget to go visit my website to buy some natural dyes or some mordants or some naturally dyed clothes or accessories. And I hope you check out my next video whenever I make another one. Bye. This video is about dyeing two. In this video, I only mordant the garments once, but I dye them